Here we go.
We've called to order the regular meeting of the Seward Planning and Zoning Commission, September 7th, 2021 at 7 p.m. Can I get a roll call?
We need to do Pledge Allegiance.
Oh, Pledge
first.
Allegiance first.
Who would you like to do it?
Commissioner Thurman, you want to lead us, please?
Yeah. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Now we'll call for a roll call.
David,
Here.
Charbonneau,
Here.
Sullivan,
Here.
Swan.
Here.
I need to also say Ambrosiani.
And Ambrosiani is absent. And Season Ecuador excused.
Okay, thank you. So we're ready for citizen comments on any subject except those items scheduled for public hearing. We'll be giving 3 minutes per speaker for a total of 36 minutes.
Mr. Chair, we have no one signed in for citizen comments.
Okay, is there anybody in the audience who would like to speak at this time? Okay, we'll go to the next thing. We'll have approval of the agenda and the consent agenda. What's the commission's wish?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Okay. It's moved by Commissioner Charbonneau and seconded by Commissioner Sullivan. And what is on that?
So on the consent agenda is the approval of August 3rd regular meeting minutes.
Thank you. And do we have a city administration report?
Yeah, you need to vote on the agenda and consent
Oh, we have to do
agenda.
that.
Make a motion.
So motion to approve agenda and consent agenda. Charbonneau,
Yes.
Gay,
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Swan.
Yes.
That motion has been passed.
All right, thank you. All right, special reports presentation. Do we have a city administration report?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I am going to remove my mask so I can breathe a little bit. I'm sorry. I am socially distanced though. I do want to take this time to officially let everyone know, as of this morning, I gave my notice to the city manager of resignation. I want to start out first with thanking the city manager for working with me and speaking with me this morning. I want to start out with letting all of you know that it's been a pleasure to work for the citizens of Seward for the past 11 years. But I personally cannot keep working on plans and policies with the undue stress that recent events have caused me and my family. The last couple years has been a challenging time for the city of Seward and for the world. I believe that the work that all Planning and Zoning Commission, PACAB, Historic Preservation, City Council, and all city staff do is very important. And I know that you will keep doing all the work and hard work necessary to keep our city the best it can be. I will always, and I have always, worked to serve my community in every way possible and to be an example to the citizens, my co-workers, my husband, my children, by showing them that my core values such as integrity, equality, transparency, and ethics should provide a foundation for every decision and policy, no matter what, in the city and in your life. If I can leave any of you with one thing, or actually multiple things, the planning process exists to serve the public interest. While the public interest is a question of continuous debate, both in its general principles and in its case-by-case occasions and applications, it requires a consistency held view of policies and actions that best serve the entire community. Planning issues commonly involve a conflict of values, and often there are large private interests at stake. These highlighted These highlight the necessity of the highest standards and fairness and honesty among all of its participants, whether it be city staff, citizens, or commissioners. Those who practice planning need to adhere to a special set of ethical requirements, and I have followed those throughout my professionalism for the city and in my life. I would recommend that the commission use orientations and goal-setting sessions to encourage elected officials to understand how their conduct and comment and commitment to public service values contribute to an ethical government. Governments won't be able to fulfill the roles if its citizens don't trust government employees to make decisions to best serve the interests of the community as a whole. Even the appearance of a questionable behavior can hurt the public trust. I want to thank every commissioner, every council member, every administrative staff member that I have worked with over the past 11 years. It's been a pleasure to work with the city staff. It's been a pleasure to be amongst all of you and to work beside you. Please note that this has been a very long and difficult decision for me, but I feel that this is the best decision. I've enjoyed working on goals and plans to ensure our city was safe, livable, and an attractive community, and I'm proud of what I have accomplished. But most of all, I'm proud of what you have accomplished. Thank you for volunteering your time and your energy, and I wish you all the very best.
That concluded, we'll go to public hearings. We'll have an opportunity for the public to speak on each of the resolutions as they come forward. Those people have a limit of 5 minutes. And first we'll do our unfinished business, items requiring a public hearing, and we'll be looking at resolution 2021-014 of the Seward Planning and Zoning Commission of the City of Seward, Alaska, recommending Kenai Peninsula Borough approval of the preliminary right-of-way ROW acquisition plat for the Seward Airport on various legal locations in sections 2 and 3, T1S, R1W, and sections 3 and 34 and 35, T1N, R1W, Seward Meridian Southwest, the point known as the Seward Airport physical location, 2310 Airport Road. Point of order here, we bring this up and then have our public comments?
You make a motion, put it on the floor, and then public hearing. Then you make a motion
Okay.
for the public.
Thank
The
you.
public will make the speak.
So, do I have a motion?
Yeah.
The motion's been made by Commissioner Sullivan, seconded
I'll second.
by Commissioner Charbonnet. Do we have anybody from the public to speak?
Mr. Chair, you do. The first would be Steve Lear.
Mr. Lear, you come up to the podium. Thank you, sir.
I'm Steve Lear at 1415 Chamberlain Road. Thanks, Jackie, for getting that changed. Seward. The parcel that we own is, from the plats, is parcel 4. And I'll just read my letter here. DOT has before you a plat shown as parcel 4, 1.986 acres for the purpose of right-of-way for the proposed new airport. This proposed taking of a portion parcel 4 of Lear's parcel, which totals 19 acres, is not acceptable to us. If DOT needs right-of-way, we will provide the entire 19 acres for the purpose and will negotiate with them to acquire it. In about 1953, Lear's provided the land for the old runway, then constructed, and I think at no cost. Just signed it over. Since that time, the airport several times has acquired additional land for right-of-way on both the existing runways at no cost. In other words, somebody would just see that they needed more right-of-way, and my dad signed off on it. Currently, the airport and other government agencies and the city own most of the land in the beach area surrounding the airport. If the airport is to consume more land for right-of-way, they need to have all of it, which includes the Lear's total 19-acre parcel and not just the portion. It would be beneficial for DOT to own the 19 acres now and not have to deal with some outside environmental or conservation entity later, which could be a possibility. They might be dealing with the Sierra Club or something. Lear's have no interest in keeping the remainder of this property when it is surrounded by government land, where nothing can be done with it being surrounded by airport right-of-way. So that's my basic approach, and I don't know how that fits in with the borough and the approval of all these plats. I also want to add to that a comment about the airport that I think is really key. And it's a little off the subject, but it is a grave mistake for DOT to promote and construct the new airport where they have it proposed. The runway is too short and in the shipping lanes and harbor traffic, and will be subject to the Resurrection River flooding. The Resurrection River flood problem will not go away. And if you look at this map over here, and if you go home and look at your Google Maps, you'll see that river wanting to head right for the docks. And I think DOT has proposed to take the topping off of that runway, and I'd bet money on it that in probably about 3 floods, that whole river is going to be dumped right in there. It'll go right through this parcel 19. The old runway should have been the solution, raising, rebuilding, riprapping it to hold the river to the east and provide a longer, better situated airport. However, this is a Corps of Engineers problem, not a DOT problem. DOT builds airports, not flood control projects. So DOT chose not to deal with the river, and it's obvious in their testimony, and went ahead and with the new airport, which is their mission. The Corps has to deal with the flood issue. 2 separate missions, each needing separate direction. Could you combine both missions and have them accomplish the same project, maybe at the same time? The first priority should be Resurrection River and not creating a new airport. The airport should be delayed until the river is moved or dealt with or taken care of. And I think that's a key thing that 10 years from now they'll be looking back and saying, that's probably right. So I appreciate your time. Thanks.
Thank you.
Sheriff Swan, just so you know what Mr. Lear provided, we will put as a laydown on the legislative history. The next signed in to speak is Bob Linville.
Good evening. I'm Bob Linville, inside the city. I spoke about this project to you before here a month ago, and I don't know, probably several times, you know, to the city, previous meetings, and at all the different DOT public process events. And I think Steve kind of brought up the problem. You've heard it before. We're giving up our long runway. We're going to have a 1,000-foot shorter runway. It's going to dump the bed load of the Resurrection River, guaranteed, into the port. Who knows when, but it's guaranteed it will come. And we know that because we're from Seward, and 90% of us live behind dikes. If we didn't, we'd have way worse disasters than we do, and we've had enough of them already when the dikes are breached. All of them get breached without maintenance. This one here has actually lasted quite some time. But it's now, like Steve said, not been considered to maintain that runway, maintain the dike that it is, and increase the level and put a new runway on it, just like that runway was built originally. Now, why have we not really discussed this? Well, because we've been down an 8 or 9 year process here where I don't even know why the DOT came to Seward, because they heard this from me and other private citizens, from the city government, and from the railroad. But they totally just disregarded when you read the response to the comments, it's always the same. Well, we're just not going to do that. Because we can't deal with the river. Well, I understand that they can't, but there is a process that can. So no city body has ever approved the runway configuration they have now until now. And I ask you to not approve this right away. If we kept the runway 1331, the long runway we have, it's 4,240 feet long, and we wouldn't need these right-of-ways because we'd be improving a runway that actually works and has worked historically, and we've had air services come over here from Kenai, said they'd fly in here if they could get that runway repaired. There's work to do to get an air service, but they would go through it. And the runway they want to build us isn't long enough. Yeah, you can land the plane on there, but not the type of plane with a full load that they want to use. But they can use a 4,240 foot runway. Also, we're giving up the best bird habitat and wetlands we have in the whole bay. And you put it all together. We can't get C-130s and, you know, and disaster response. It just makes you shake your head about why we haven't really been able to get any traction with the discussions so far. I understand there's a new engineer in charge. The one that has been in charge throughout the public process has now left. And I haven't met the new engineer, but I understand he's willing to deal with us on this. So I guess, you know, I ask you, this is a decision, you need to vote yea or nay on these right-of-ways. I ask you to vote no. A planning commission should be looking down the road to the future and not just taking something that we know is bad and we know we'll be looking back on this. I mean, I don't know if I'll be around in 10 years or 20, whenever that we wind up realizing that our port is in trouble. I mean, you can stand up on the high country and look across and just see what I'm talking about. The Resurrection Delta will be straight across, and that'll bring it right into the Port of Seward. And we should avoid that. So, just for all the reasons you've heard from us before, please just analyze them and come to the conclusion that it's best we can work it out politically. And I don't think it'd take that long. We all sit at the table, work together, we can get a runway that works for Seward and doesn't destroy Seward. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chair Swan. Next is Carol Griswold.
Greetings, Carol Griswold, Inside City Limits. I agree with the previous public comments to deny this right-of-way acquisition. But if it has to proceed, I do have some suggestions. I understand that the reason the short runway 1634 is being shifted east 100 feet is due to FAA's decision to apply a higher design standard that requires a greater separation between the center line of the runway and the parallel taxi lane along the edge of the apron. Many small rural Alaskan airports seem to have FAA allowances for challenging locations with notations listed in their descriptions. As previously noted, the Seward Airport runway is situated in a wetlands surrounded by salmon streams, ponds, and estuary, forested areas, wildlife habitat, and is affected by strong winds, surrounding mountains, high tides, and storm surge. I measured roughly 165 feet from the east edge of the parallel taxiway apron to the center line of the existing 1634 runway. The new runway will be 75 feet wide instead of the existing 100 feet wide, giving another 13 feet of clearance. Would roughly 180 feet of separation be allowed? The considerable benefits of rebuilding the new runway in the best spot in the same location for this small rural airport seems to justify this accommodation. Acquisition of the proposed Civil Air Patrol right-of-way acquisition, Parcel 1, will not make the north approach departure safe, even if the entire parcel was drastically cleared and grubbed due to the tall trees on the adjacent property. The existing runway location provides more open area over the highway and meadows uplands in the approach descent and will require less trimming and clearing. A larger buffer would be possible around the north pond and along the Resurrection River, as they would be farther from the approach descent path. The expensive and controversial acquisition of the Lear property, Parcel 4, in the estuary pond would be eliminated. There would be no need to fill the wetlands to the east of the existing runway. Retaining the existing location would place the southern extension in a narrower part of the pond and require less fill, reducing the impact to the pond, waterfall, and wetlands to the south, and potentially increase the aviation safety by avoiding collisions with large waterfowl. The taxiways and runway lighting extensions would be shorter and easier to maintain. All these benefits save time and money, reduce the negative impacts on the habitat, and increase safety for aircraft and their passengers. Acquisition of Parcel 5, the tidelands, would not change. The map on page 14 is the existing airport parcel with a big typo. It is not the right-of-way replat. The DOT maps are difficult to understand, especially for those who are not familiar with the properties. Please consider moving to amend this resolution to require an accurate map that clearly shows the 3 proposed right-of-way parcels. Thank you very much.
Chair Swan, I believe we have someone from DOT that's wanting to speak. I don't know, do we have him muted?
I don't think it's muted.
Is anybody from DOT here on the phone?
Yes. Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, let's see if we can turn it up.
Can you send the microphone over?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, just we're moving some microphones.
Okay.
Okay, you go ahead. State your name.
Yes, I'm Joy Vaughn. I'm the project manager for DOT for this project. I'd like to make some comments regarding the different observations from the public. First, I'd like to address why we're not planning at this point to raise the main runway, the existing 1331 runway. The reason that we are not planning to do that is that it is, there is a FEMA map, it's called a firm map, that's used for flood insurance, that it's called the FEMA firm for the Seward area. The FEMA firm that was adopted completely separate from this project was done with a hydrologic study, and it showed that the river is trying to cross the main runway, which is exactly what truth is what has been observed. Whenever there is a floodway put onto an official FEMA map, the regulations say that you cannot add fill in the floodway. The only way to raise the main runway would be to add fill. The other issue that we have is that our project is 90-some% funded by the FAA. If we were to, we can't just repave the runway. As many of you know, it's weaker now because of the influence of the river. It's not just going over it, it's been migrating through the embankment. And it's taken a lot of the fines away. That's why the weight limitations have been lower than why only small aircraft are supposed to be landing on it in this time. So what that means is that the runway cannot be just repaved. It actually has to be reconstructed. We would have to dig down a certain amount and reconstruct it, or, as I said, raise it and raise it. And the problem with that is that if we reconstruct it, we have to prove to the FAA that we have aircraft that need a runway 100 feet wide and 4,200 feet long that are regularly using it. And that is not the situation. We were able to show the FAA that we have aircraft of a size that we could take a 75-foot runway, our 3,300-foot length, and that is what we're doing when we raise the crosswind runway. So basically our problem is that we're not allowed to fill where that runway is, and we can't rebuild it because the funding agency would require us to have a different size runway than what is there. In light of that, what we have done is we've talked to the FAA and shown them forecasts, and we did a lot of calling of different air carriers, trying to see who would be considering flying into the area, and based on that, we were able to justify to the FAA to do a runway instead of the current short 60-foot wide runway, to do a longer 3,300-foot long runway, 75 feet wide. The reason it's being shifted east is because for this class of runway, the FAA requires a larger separation between the apron or the taxiway on the edge of the apron and the center of the runway. Sometimes they make exceptions if we were like repaving existing infrastructure, but when we're building something like this, we're building new embankment, generally they don't make exceptions for that. Let's see if there's something else here. We are trying to be sensitive to the salmon stream situation. We are removing taxiway A and taking out those culverts to basically restore the stream that's crossing taxiway A now. We also, we're out there with Fish and Game today looking at the salmon stream to the west of the embankment. Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, we have no one else signed in.
Is there anybody else in the audience who would like to speak on this matter? Seeing none, we'll proceed to our deliberations.
Chair Swan, Courtney and I, Tanner Ringhurst and I would like to recommend that you approve substitute resolution 21. That's what's in your packet. We need to make
Right.
sure substitute is in there.
Right. So, yes, why don't we, so we probably should have we'll need a vote on that?
Yeah, the
Okay,
substitute.
so would somebody like to make a motion that we make substitution?
I'll make a motion that we
Make,
pass substitute resolution
correct. 2021 dash
2021 dash,
1.
yes.
I'll second.
Okay. So we have a motion by Chairman Charbonneau and seconded by Commissioner Verhey. And do we have any discussion on it?
Yeah, I had in the packet under the comments, Public Works has concern about the hazards for the, hazard easement / clear zone of the DeGraff Road may conflict with the city's snowplow dump.
So in
We-
the substitute agenda,
Okay,
it's pointed out that the aviation pad easement already exists and is not part of the changes proposed in the preliminary plan, and the parcel being acquired will not conflict with the city's
Okay.
snow belt.
so that's null and void now. Okay,
Would you like administrative report?
Oh, I would, actually.
I'll let.
Are you doing it on the old one or the new substitute?
She's gonna do it on the new substitute.
So should we get the new substitute in front of us?
It is in front of you, but you guys just voted you brought it forward. So
Yep.
now it's discussion, you're asking us for administrative report, and then you guys will vote on that substitute.
It's in the packet.
Well, I understood that. I thought we had to move it to the substitute because we have the original one on the agenda.
The substitute's in the packet also.
Okay. All right, so we are on the substitute. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Yes, administration report, please.
So the substitute resolution 2021-014 states, this is a substitute resolution of the Planning and Zoning Commission of the City of Seward, Alaska, recommending Kenai Peninsula Borough approval of the preliminary right-of-way acquisition plat with amendments for the Seward Airport on various legals located in section 2 and 3, T1S, R1W, and section 34 and 35, T1N, R1W, Seward Meridian, southwest, that point known as the Seward Airport. Physical location 2310 Airport Road. So this is, whereas the Seward Airport was submitted, the Seward Airport has submitted a preliminary plat to the City of Seward for review and recommendation to the Kenai Peninsula Borough. And whereas this preliminary plating action recommends the acquisition of parcel 1 owned by Civil Air Patrol, parcel 4 owned by Lear Enterprises LLC, and parcel 5 owned by the City of Seward. And whereas the parcel located at 2310 Port Road is zoned industrial, and whereas city staff has stated that a subdivision installation agreement is not required for this right-of-way acquisition plat, since per the definition of a subdivision, the land being acquired will not be used for future sale, lease, or building development. Whereas all conditions required by Seward City Code 16.01.015, conditions to plat approval were met, property owners and leaseholders within 300 feet of the requested replat were notified, and the property was posted with public notice signage. And whereas the Planning and Zoning Commission held a joint work session with the Port and Commerce Advisory Board and the Seward Bear Creek Flood Board on August 11th, 2021, and agreed that there were certain conditions they felt were necessary to request in order to approve this preliminary right-of-way acquisition plat. Whereas it is the Planning and Zoning Commission's responsibility to act in an advisory capacity to the Seward City Council and the Kenai Peninsula Borough regarding preliminary right-of-way acquisition plat approvals. Now therefore be it resolved by the Sewer Plan and Zoning Commission that the commission hereby recommends that in accordance with the Sewer State Code, Section 16.01.015, that the City Council approve the submittal of the preliminary right-of-way acquisition plat of that point known as the Seward Airport, with amendments proposing the action to acquire parcel 1, parcel 4, parcel 5. Section 2 is the amendments to this resolution are as follows. That the Planning and Zoning Commission recommends this resolution as long as the following conditions are met. Public access to the beach to the south of the airport property is provided. A fire hydrant is installed on the airport property, and water and sewer are brought to the airport facilities.
Thank you.
And Chair Swan, we did provide you a laydown that was provided to us on Friday afternoon. It's clarification of public comments from planning and zoning meeting, your joint work session that you had. DOT provided this. We will have it on the website as a laydown also. Just that's what I gave you.
Okay, thank you. So I want to start with a comment. It would be inappropriate for this body to be voting on whether the airport project moves forward or not. That is not our area. We are strictly looking at whether it is appropriate for an individual or an organization, an entity that owns multiple pieces of property, and they own all the property, if that is appropriate to be replatted into a single unit. That's what we're looking at. And the fact that we are an entity which public gets to speak and bring their comments, even though they don't regard what we're doing here today, this is a perfect opportunity for the people, the public, to make comments concerning the entire project. And those comments, of course, will go on to DOT and your city council and the borough and anybody else that wants to look at it. But I just want to make that clear before we discuss it. We are strictly looking at the replat situation. So, you open this up?
You said basically what I was going to say, so.
Okay. Commissioner Sullivan, did you have any comments?
The only thing I have is that I just wanted to be sure, because you were talking about some of the land for section 5, that on the, okay, sorry. And it was at area 5, and that was the 19 acres. And are we considering all of that, or is that just one part of that? Because that's, Mr. Lehrer had brought that up as far as.
I think for our purposes, I'm going to reiterate what I just said, and the fact that a single entity, whether it's an individual or an organization that owns all the property, if that individual wants to eliminate the lot lines to make it a single lot, that's what we're looking at, because they're just asking that we have multiple parcels of property, and they don't even own them yet. They're asking us to pre-look at this, that if they own all those parcels, our recommendation, if it should be platted into a single.
Right.
And any restrictions on any one piece of property would then be involved with all the properties, because it's a single piece of property.
Okay.
So, I mean, whether it's a sliver or a full 19 acres, I think and I can be corrected, I think that in our situation, it doesn't make a difference. We're just looking at if it should be made, if there's any reason that it shouldn't be made into a single lot.
Okay.
Anything else?
Nope, I think I'm good.
Okay. Commissioner Berrigan?
Yeah, I got nothing.
Okay. And so my only last concern, I really thought about this quite a bit, and I actually could not come up with a scenario where an individual that owned multiple lots shouldn't be able to make them into one. Okay. Any other discussion? Can I ask for a vote?
So voting on substitute resolution 2021 of the Sewer Planning and Zoning Commission recommending the Kenai Peninsula Borough approval of the preliminary right-of-way acquisition plat for the Seward Airport.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Charbonneau,
Yes.
Harvey,
Yes.
Swan.
Yes.
Resolution 2021-014 is approved.
Go back up here. Oops. Okay, come on, I won't go up. You excuse us, we have new computers.
When I can come into the second one, they don't have copies, everyone.
Okay. Well, that's really weird. I'll do it this way. Okay, next on our agenda is new business items requiring a public hearing. And we have before us resolution 2021-019. What are the commissioners' wishes?
Would you like us to read that into? So 2021-019 is granting a conditional use permit to Jane Kratzman to construct a mixed-use building on lots 37 through 40, Block 4 of the original town site of Seward, Alaska, located at 134 4th Avenue within a central business district.
Thank you for covering for me. Okay, what are the commission's wishes?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2021-019.
I'll second.
It has been brought forward by Commissioner Charbonneau and seconded by Commissioner Sullivan.
Public hearing?
Yes, do we have anybody scheduled?
We do.
For
We
public
have
hearing.
Mr. Jim Kratzman signed it.
Excellent. Yes, please. And state your name and whether you live inside or outside the city limits.
My name is James Protzman. I live outside the city limits. Just a quick brief history on myself. I started out in the years that my family has lived in Seward, and it exceeded 400. Sounds pretty crazy, but my dad was born here in 1926. I was born here in 1957. My brother in 1949. My grandmother bought Dreamland Bull in 1951. Later on sold it to my cousins, Don and Marty Kowalski. So I went to high school here in 9th grade. It was the last year they had school initiation that year, so if you're around in '73, I was downtown selling squares of toilet paper for $1 a piece. So I saw this lot downtown Seward, and me and Elizabeth have looked at it for the last couple of years, and I've just thought, man, what a great place to build some permanent residence in downtown Seward. So we made some offers on it a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. Wasn't accepted, but it was one of these dreams that I had, and I've done some construction in Anchorage on different types of buildings, and so I looked at that, and we looked at the different options on it, and came up with a plan, you know, somewhat of a design for a building. So basically it's a 3-story building, parking down below. Every unit has a parking stall. I know the preliminary drawings you have only show 10 parking spots and 12 units, but it's actually 6 and 4 on the unit. So every unit will have its own parking stall downstairs, plus a retail spot. So I'm looking at permanent residents. They're not going to be Airbnbs or anything like that. That's probably going to be stuck in the CCRs. It's not going to be a weekly rental flop house for people that come and go in the summertime. I'm looking for permanent type residents and build them accordingly to where people can live there year round. It's a quite expensive project. That piece of property down there, if you figure out the square footage, ends up to be just right about $2.2 million an acre. So you can buy some really nice stuff around the world for $2.2 million an acre. That lot is only 8,800 square feet, and that's why to make the thing work, that's why I went with a maximum height to get the units in there to kind of spread it out, because it's a very expensive piece of property. That's why the footprint is what it is. That's why we have the retail in there. And so I'm excited about it. I'm looking at, in the event that we get approved for it, is breaking ground the spring of next year and going forward. It's really tough, as you know, building stuff nowadays because prices have escalated, supplies are diminishing. So there is a pretty high risk to even get it together, but it gives me some time to get some material together, get some suppliers together, and contractors as well. So I've talked to some dirt guys here in Anchorage, or not in Anchorage, here in Seward, to do my dirt work for me. They're on board with it, and so that's basically it. I mean, it's I'm excited about it. I'm planning on having a unit for myself to live, and probably retire here in the summertime at least. So that's all I got.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good
We
evening.
have no one else signed in.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody in the audience? Yes, please.
Thank you. I'm Tara Reamer, Inside City Limits, and President and CEO of the Alaska Sea Life Center, whose corporate name is the Seward Association for the Advancement of Marine Science, who is the current owner of this lot, and have not met Mr. Protzman, but great to meet you. And just wanted to speak last, which is why I never sign up for stuff here, because then you get to go last. It is currently owned by the Sea Life Center, and it was originally purchased when there was the plan for the Mary Lowell Center, and it was going to be an ideal connecting property between that building and the Sea Life Center to help improve flow of people. And since that project canceled, we've kind of been holding on to it, trying to figure out what to do with it. And Mr. Protzman's idea, I think, is a great one for that property. It is a highly developable property. It's going to be to the good of the local landowners around it to have that property developed and not sit vacant. I know when we had earlier put it on the market in 2017, there was some concern about blocking the view, but there had been a building on that property for a very long period of time. So this is more going back to actually the historic situation of a building and a three-story building on that property. So, and obviously the community, including our staff, are in need of housing. I think it's going to be something that would really benefit the community. And in terms of the conditional use permit, it doesn't sound to me like anything inconsistent with what's being done in other areas of downtown. I know that our staff are hoping for another coffee shop that's open year-round in that retail space, or at least open when Sudie's is closed. But I think that it is mixed use. It is something that requires a conditional use permit, but it doesn't seem any way inconsistent with things that have been done and already approved in the area. So, as an adjacent landowner as well, just wanted to notice that this is something that would provide benefit to the area, and I speak for in favor of approving the conditional use permit. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a administrative report.
I'm going to help Courtney out here, so I'm going to do this one. So, as stated earlier, James Protzman has applied for a conditional use permit from the Seward Planning and Zoning Commission to construct a mixed-use building on his property located at 134 4th Avenue. Year-round housing is very limited and difficult to find here in Seward. The proposed project for the CUP would add up to 12 townhomes/apartments to the downtown Seward area with a mixed use of commercial, addition of year-round homes, and retail space. Sorry, I lost my spot. Since the parcel is located in the central business district, the applicant is planning on providing space on the ground floor for a business. Currently, there are multiple downtown businesses that have apartments or nightly rentals above their businesses. So this combination of retail and housing would not be unprecedented use in downtown. Even though the central business district does not require parking be provided, the applicant is planning on constructing a separate covered parking area on the parcel for the townhomes that he is constructing. So in addition, the housing of the central business district will not cause additional stress in the parking situation. Surrounding land use and zoning, the development requirements, the proposed structure for the business meets the zoning code requirements in table 1510-220, including lot coverage, minimum buildable lot size and building height. Flood status, according to the Kenai Peninsula Borough flood map, there is not one located this is not located in a flood zone. As far as utilities, water, sewer, power are available to the property, and the applicant is planning on connecting to all of those, providing adequate fire, police, and solid waste disposal services that are available to the property. The city code also requires that every business or building site within the city must provide containers suitable for refuse. And Seward City Code 1405, all containers shall be watertight with an animal-proof lid. Parking, since the property is located in the central business district, parking is not specifically required. However, the site design shows that there will be 10 parking spots constructed on the ground level. Consistency checklist, the comprehensive plan, encourages the development, Volume 1, Chapter 2-11, economic base. This encourages the development of infrastructure expansion plans for currently undevelopable residential and commercial property. Volume 1, 3.2, land use. It promotes residential and commercial development within the city of Seward and its vicinity in accordance to the community values. And Volume 1, 3.3, housing. It is encouraged that the development of new housing in Seward. The strategic plan, page 9, encourages construction of residential housing on all market levels and expands the availability of affordable, diverse, year-round housing on page 18. Staff reviews were sent out. The following comments were made. The building department stated that the property will need to meet all building and fire codes. The fire department said prior to construction, they need to apply for a building permit, provide stamped engineer and architectural drawings to meet local adopted building and fire codes. Public Works is asked to provide an adequate snow removal plan to ensure the entrance of the parking does not conflict with the current street parking. The harbor had no comment. The police department had no comment. The electric department requires that all 811 has been applied for. I believe that the electric department has also already met with Mr. Brockson. Telecommunications had no comment. Property notice was sent out to all property owners within 300 feet of lots 37 through 40, block 4. They were notified of the proposed conditional use action. Public notices were posted on the property, and all public hearing requirements of the Seward City Code 15-140 were complied with. At the time of the publication, the Community Development Department had received no public inquiries regarding the proposed conditional use, and we have not received any since then. The conditions, since this is a conditional use permit, we will read the conditions that are recommended. The applicant shall work with city staff through the building process to address and accomplish the required upgrades or modifications. Prior to operation, the building department will be constructed following, the building will be constructed following requirements per the International Fire Code, IFC, and International Building Code, IBC. The applicant shall work with all city utility departments for any possible upgrades to water, sewer, and electric utilities prior to the certificate of occupancy ever being issued. All parking and maneuverability shall remain on site for the life of its use. bear-proof / bird-proof resistance containers shall be provided for all garbage and refuse for the life of the use. Per Seward City Code 1510-325F, approved CUP shall lapse 6 months from the date of approval if the use for the permit was issued but has not been implemented or a building permit has not been obtained. The commission may grant a 6-month extension upon finding that circumstances have not changed significantly since the date of initial permit. Modification of the approval of a conditional use permit may, upon application by the permittee, be modified by the Planning and Zoning Commission. A, when change conditions cause the conditional use to no longer conform to the standards for which it was approved. To implement a different development plan conforming to the standards for its approval, and the modification plan shall be subject to a public hearing and a filing fee set by City Council. The Community Development Department recommends that the Planning and Zoning Commission approve Resolution 2021-019, granting a conditional use permit to James Protzman to construct a mixed-use building at 134 4th Avenue in the original town site of Seward Central Business District.
Thank you. Before we get started, I'd like to bring a couple things up. First of all, since we have a couple new commissioners, where did that just go? Hang on a second. Touch the thing and it goes away. Okay, so this is a quasi-judicial hearing. In other words, we're operating as a group, as a judge. This is not going forward to somebody else to approve. In that, and this is, I'm speaking as just a quasi-judicial. This has nothing to do with this particular project. This is general information. In these circumstances, if any of us have specific information that will affect that person's judgment, it's important that they share that. We all need to have the same information, just like a judge at a trial. All the information needs to be heard by everybody. The same thing on this type of thing is if before we get here, if you're looking through your packet and you see something that's very confusing, that's you don't understand and you think you need clarification on, it is inappropriate for any individual of us to go out and do a site investigation by ourselves. In those situations, we go to the planning department, we make up a meeting with the owner who's bringing it forward, and we all go as a group. So I just want to go over that because a couple of you are new. The other thing is, because of this, I think we should ask, does anybody have reasons that they should recuse themselves? Okay. And does anybody have any reasons that somebody else should be recused? Great. And we will move forward with Resolution 2021, our discussion of Resolution 2021-19. Commissioner Charbonneau, you brought this up. Why don't you start us out here?
Yes. First off, I'd like to say it's refreshing to see a building owner take responsibility for the parking pressure that their building's going to put on and add parking. Looking through it, it looked like it met height, and we went through and it did. I had a question. So the 10 parking spots and the 6 and 4, but there's 12 on there. Does that mean there's 10 units and the drawing has 12?
We're looking at changing the top.
Okay, excuse me, before you,
Sorry.
you need to ask me and I will relax the rules.
Yes.
You
Is
have a
there
question
10
about-
versus 12? Because on the specs it says 12 units.
Okay, and earlier we heard 10.
Correct.
Okay, I'd like to ask that we relax the rules, and if you'd come up to the podium and answer the question for it, I'd appreciate it.
So the floor plans of each floor we haven't 100% put together, but I can guarantee you there'll be a parking spot for every unit. So we're looking at 6 and 4 because we only had 10 parking spots, because we have to put in an elevator, a set of steps, and then there's a 125-foot rule. So we ended up having to put in 2 sets of steps into it. So that second set of steps, because of fire code, kind of took up a parking spot. So if we end up with 10 units, there will be 10 parking spots. So there'll be a parking spot for every unit. And it is a little confusing because it shows 6 and 6, but it shows 10 downstairs. But we were trying to get the packet together and get it submitted in time, and it was more important that you guys had the site and the elevations and the exterior views as opposed to what the guts of it were, but, so,
Thank you.
okay.
Continue.
Those are my comments.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah. I guess also, if I can ask James a question, about, like, the townhouses, will they be individually owned, or you would continue to keep them?
I think I can
Sure.
answer that. It actually, if you read all the way through, it's actually apartments.
Okay.
At some point in
Because
time,
it also
it
mentions-
says the word townhouse, but also says apartments.
Right.
And he made a statement that these will be rented long-term.
Right.
They are going to be sold?
Yes. There'll be
So these are condos.
They'll be sold outright to somebody.
So we sold outright, so there's not really a
They're
way to
condos,
prevent
not apartments.
night lease
Sorry.
in that case, potentially.
Could you repeat that?
So if they're sold to other people, then they have greater potential to become night lease or short-term.
No, you actually put that in your CCRs and
Yeah,
condo association, so you just, it's very simple.
Okay.
You just,
I'm gonna interrupt the end. And this is good, but,
so you're okay.
right, I agree, but I need you to speak at the podium.
Right.
Because everything we do is recorded,
okay.
and
You
then,
want me to go up there?
yeah, if you would.
So the units will be sold outright as condos, just like if you bought a condo any place.
Right.
And there will be CCRs for them that will not allow you to do weekly rentals. You know, I'm thinking on a monthly basis because a lot of times people, maybe you'll move here for a year and so that's pretty common, but they're not gonna be a weekly, daily or anything. You can put that in the CCRs where it's just not allowed. It's really easy to do, so.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yep, question. Thank you.
And just so you know that, and with that property, those CCRs would be recorded, so it would be a searchable document at a later time.
Okay, so my comment on this, and it goes back to kind of our historic, what we've been doing, and I know that you look downtown and there's a lot of businesses that have lodging up above and they have not provided the equal amount. In fact, if we made a different combination here, if we cut this down to 10 units instead of 12, maybe 12, then considering you'd still have 4 of the units at over 2,000 square feet, the required parking would be 24 spaces. Right, be 24 spaces. And I know, as I say, there's a lot of businesses that have lodging that are not providing. All those businesses were in that situation before the codes were put into place. Since the codes were put into place, we have required that lodging in the downtown area, whether it's nightly or long-term, meet current parking codes so that it doesn't impact the business parking in the area. So the retail shop would not require parking. And I personally, because we've required the other businesses that have asked for CUPs, and if you look at it, there's only one situation in the downtown area where a CUP isn't required when lodging is involved, and that's when there's a single apartment above a business, and that's a manager's apartment or a caretaker's apartment. In all other situations in the downtown area, when it comes to lodging, a CUP is required. So that's the main thing that that we are looking at. Why are CUPs required in this situation is parking. And in the past, with the situation with Sea Salt, Marathon Apartments, and a couple other ones that have come through, we have required the full amount of parking. And I think we're looking at a situation as nice as this project is, that if we start opening up and we allow less than 50% of the required parking, then who's to say when Hotel Edgewater does their expansion, because they purchased their property over there and they're planning an expansion, that all of a sudden we're at that same situation where we have to, we can, you know, that it'd be inappropriate for us to allow one business to reduce those levels and then require another business to maintain them. And so I can't in any good conscience see how we can approve this CUP with this level of parking. Now, the same thing with Edgewater, how they got around it when they built their hotel, is they provided parking off space. And that is allowed in our codes, that you pick up a piece of property. Well, you see Edgewater, they picked up a property here, even though they're all down there. And that was a requirement that they, you know, that was put upon them. And so I would like to, at this point in time, make a motion that we add, let me get in here, a condition that 24, or the, I'm not sure how to word this. That the minimum required parking be provided for a apartment complex or a condo complex.
Chair Swan, can I
Yes, please.
interject for a second? One, I want to make really clear, we've mixed some things here. You say lodging. Lodging is
Correct.
different
I
to,
did.
you know, lodging and living.
Correct.
Is like I like to say.
Right.
So we need to make sure that, you know, when you're looking at properties in that area, is it a short-term lodging? Is it a year-round living?
Correct.
So there's a difference. Our code does require parking, but it also states that in the parking portion, I'm getting up to it, so, townhomes, condominiums, all require conditional use in a central business district. And then as you go in to discuss the parking arrangements, just to give you guys the layout of, because you are new, there are a lot of new commissioners, and Mr. Swan has been on here for a while, so he is leading you in a right direction. I just want to make sure that it's not merged with what lodging is, it's merged with what the parking requirements are. So, I'm sorry, bear with me, I'm even having computer problems. I'm trying to get up to it. So in our code, I'm just going to read through that parking 1510-215, except in the central business district or harbor districts, there shall be provided permanently maintained off-street parking for the principal businesses that shall be responsibility of the owner and provide and maintain said off-street parking in accordance with the chapter for the life of the business. And then when you go into and expand the property, it states the land use, dwelling, multifamily dwellings, and other spaces containing multiple dwellings is where Mr. Swan is coming into. 2 parking spaces per dwelling unit plus a half space for every larger unit more than 2 bedrooms or greater than 1,000 square feet. And then in efficiency apartments, it's one off, you know, you have to have 1 off space. So what Mr. Swan is talking about is Hotel Edgewater, which he's, you know, they have a CUP that requires them to have this parking lot down here. And making a condition or a recommendation would be adding a number 7 to provide the community development department with a parking agreement for anything over that 10 that he's providing, that you are requesting. If you want want him to have, if he has 10 units and you want him to have 20 parking spaces, then he would provide a parking agreement for an undisclosed location to the planning and zoning committee, not to the commission, but to the community development department. Under your conditions, you have the ability to do that. You also have the ability to look at it as an apartment building, one space per unit. That's where the conditions come into play for you as a commission. I hope I didn't muddy it anymore.
No. Thank you, and that is, it's, you know, 15-10-215 parking under that resolution under multifamily dwellings, which is what we fall underneath. It contains, is exactly what Jackie described. And so I would like to bring forward to add number 7, under conditions, that the applicant meet the requirements under 15-10-215 for parking, either on-site or off-site. Would that be sufficient?
Yeah,
Or should I put
by
in-
providing a parking agreement for
Okay,
off-site.
or off-site. With a parking agreement with community development.
Correct. And so you've made a motion to amend
Yes.
adding a number 7 with those
Do I have
requirements. Does he have a second?
second?
I'll second.
It's seconded by Commissioner Sullivan. I've made my point. Does anybody want to make a comment on
I have a question. Jackie, when she was reading through there, mentioned apartment 1 per spot, if I heard that correctly. But then also 2 per for dwelling greater than 1,000 square feet.
that? Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's 2 spaces per dwelling,
yeah,
plus a half space for every unit larger than 2 bedrooms or greater than 1,000 square feet.
okay, but then I thought I heard you say also later apartment 1 per.
A
That's-
studio apartment
So
or
like studio.
efficiency apartments.
Okay, I just heard
are all in
apartment, so I
one.
was,
Right.
I wanted to clarify what the apartment, what you, yeah. So I missed the studio, okay.
And a studio, I think, is less than 500 square feet?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, I call for a vote.
So, motion to amend resolution 2021-019 to add the condition of
This condition number 7.
add condition number 7, that the applicant meet the requirements for parking under 15.010.215, either with on-street or
On-site.
on-site parking or off-site with a parking agreement submitted to community development.
Correct.
Verdi,
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Charbonneau,
Yes.
Swan.
Yes.
That motion has been passed.
All right, we're back to the original motion on the floor. Do we have any more discussion on that?
I don't think so. No.
Okay, I call for a vote.
So approving resolution 2021-19 as amended, granting a conditional use permit to James Protzman to construct a mixed-use building at 134 4th Avenue, lots 37 through 40, Block 4, original town site, Seward, Alaska, in the Central Business District. Sullivan,
Yes.
Charbonneau,
Yes.
Verhey,
Yes.
Chair Swan.
Yes.
Resolution 2021-019 has been approved.
Thank you. All right, we are on to, otherwise we won't.
Can I make one comment?
Yeah,
Um,
there'd
you
be,
can during citizen comments at the end.
at the end, we have an opening at the end for that. Okay. All right, unfinished business.
You have none.
We have none. Under new business, review edits to lodging and dwelling definitions for joint work session with City Council on August 17th. And
I can discuss that for you.
Okay.
if you'd like.
I'll let you take the lead on that.
So, on page 46 of your packet, City Manager Bauer has helped from the August 17th work session that happened with Commission and Council. She has graciously redid the ordinance for us in full form. No asterisks, no anything, made the changes that were recommended between both the commission and the council. And I would suggest that at this time, you can either choose to review it now or schedule a work session for September 21st to have us provide a mirrored copy of what changes you had already agreed to and recommended. Council did deny the resolution, the ordinance at their meeting and brought it back to planning and zoning. So it will come forward to you either in October or later with any changes that are made after additional work sessions.
Correct. Yeah, so I would like to move that we postpone this, because I would like to see it like in the past, because now we've made changes from the original changes that we've made, and now some additional changes that I think need to actually be brought up in a different color or something, because we have so many changes on, and I don't think that that we have the time here, or that this is the proper setting to have a discussion about those type of things.
And Chair Swan, this is just to review it, and at this
Right.
time you could suggest to bring it forward at another work session or at another date, and we can move forward with that.
Right, and that's exactly what I do. First, down a little lower, we have this, we're gonna do it then. So, like, we can do it right now, and I do recommend that we bring it up to our next work session, which is in 2 weeks. Is
Second that.
everybody okay with that? I think this is a,
We'll bring it to you in color.
okay. We don't need a vote for this, we're okay.
No.
Okay.
All right, so that's taken care of, and, you know, of course, number 2 is, because that's on our thing, on what we're gonna do on our next work session. Is there anything else? I mean, I'm not sure that that's gonna take a huge amount of time. Is there anything else that we should be looking at that work session?
I think that if we do you as a commission and the Planning and Zoning Commission and Community Development work from 6 to 7 on these reviews, we'll be able to give it to you ahead of time in color, and then you can start the continuing update and review of the land use table and ground truthing. So that would give you your 2 hours of work session.
Okay,
If we don't make it to the second topic because something else has happened, you're okay there, but
Yep.
at least we'll notice it as review of the lodging and dwelling edits, as well as
Yep.
the update.
Does anybody have an issue with that?
No.
Okay, so be it.
Let it happen.
Let it happen. Okay, informational items and reports. These are all things we can just look at ourselves. Does administration want to make any comments on those?
No, Chair Swan.
Okay, and then we have commission comments. Commissioner Sullivan?
Once again, I'd like to thank everybody for all their hard work that's here, especially the planning department, and I am, for one, very sorry to see you go, Ms. Wild. You've been for the short time that I've been on here, it's been amazingly fast learning, but you've been very helpful. Thank you.
Commissioner Verhey?
Yeah, I can second that. I've appreciated your help, Jackie, throughout this. Yeah, you'll be missed, and always appreciate citizens being involved. It's really helpful. And yeah, that's
Commissioner Charbonneau?
Yeah, I would like to thank Courtney and say farewell to Jackie and that we will miss her a lot.
I don't even know how to express myself, so I won't. Citizens' comments, sir.
So one thing if you look at the plans, the parking spots that are in each one of these units are 10 by 35. An average parking spot is 9 by 18. So they're basically 2-car, and I made them extra deep and extra big because people have toys, bicycles, motorcycles, whatever, but the average car is about 15 foot long. My full-size pickup Chevy extended cab pickup is just under 18 foot long. So those parking spots that are provided, which there's 10 of them, theoretically, I could divide them in and make 2 parking spots out of every one of them, and they'd be a foot wider than a normal parking spot, because I hate door dings, so that's why they're 10 foot wide. I just was looking at this thing and thinking,
Makes sense.
they're large parking spots. They're basically two parking spots per stall. So there's 20 parking spots covered in there, so.
Thank you, Jane. And then we have Commissioner and Administration's response to citizen comments. Does anybody want to make a comment? Okay, yeah, to respond to your comment here, I mean, I totally understand where you're coming from, and I don't disagree with what you're saying. We're kind of held to maintain things, and the fact that they're condos and then they're going to be sold, I think it's probably realistic that half that parking place is going to be a boat or motorcycles. And this is where, I get to do this. And this is where we at this end run into this year in, year out. You know, the problem with, once it's sold, you have no control. And so we have to look at it from that point of view as basically 10 different owners and how they're going to respond. And we deal with parking on a, I don't want to say monthly basis, but I'm pretty sure we probably deal with parking on a quarterly basis. Something comes up and the discussion of parking is involved. And in town, that's a very big issue. And so we're kind of, that's where we're at. And maybe, you can look at some different design aspects and stuff like that. But, that's where it's at. Anyway, have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay. Adjourn.
You're sharp with that.
Thank you.